Wake up. It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast, episode 129. How to take the perfect nap. Lay your weary head to rest. Welcome, everyone, to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. My name is Chris Winter. I'm a neurologist, sleep specialist, and your host for this podcast. If you're new to the Sleep Unplugged podcast, welcome. If you're a veteran, welcome back. We are glad you're here. Whew, can't believe it. 2024 is coming to an end rapidly. We only have a few more episodes left in the podcast. Last week we did How to Come Off Sleeping Pills, which was the first Monday of the month. So it's the last first Monday of the month for 2024. We will conclude this year's episode with our traditional Sleep Unplugged Awards, where we award special designations and loud best books related to sleep for the year and other people in the field. I personally love this episode. It's my chance to look around and think about other people in my field who give so much and give them a little recognition. If you're a follower of the podcast, you know that the winners of the Sleep Unplugged yearly awards win the trucker hat. If you're interested in purchasing a trucker hat, you can. This is a great time. The holidays are coming up. DM me at Dr. Chris Winter Twitter, Dr. Chris Winter Bluesky, Dr. Chris Winter Instagram. The hats are $25 and we'll send one out to you. Of course, if you win the Sleep Unplugged yearly award, this will be the third annual. I can't believe it. Third annual Sleep Unplugged award. The hat and the certificate is free. So really looking forward to that episode. Been a busy week. I was just in Knoxville, Tennessee, doing some lecturing. Really enjoyed that. Um, Also got one of the nicest thank you notes from the Navy. A couple of weeks ago, I was up doing some lecturing for the United States Navy, and man, I tell you what, the impact that a thank you note can have when somebody takes the time to write it out on letterhead and mail it to you is definitely not lost on me. I'll spare you the details, but it was very meaningful to receive. Couple comments, corrections, criticisms. I just want to throw this out there. It's been a while since I've gotten a criticism or a correction, and I really want you, if you're listening to the podcast and you hear something that doesn't sound right or you think is wrong, or just don't be afraid to DM me again, Dr. Chris Winter, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky Threads, and let me know. You can also reach me through YouTube. We have a YouTube page dedicated to the Sleep Unplugged podcast where you can watch video content of all the episodes. And so I want to two comments, corrections, criticisms. The first one was from Howie, who wrote, "What? No Bowie?" Or no Bowie connection. Sorry, Howie. No Bowie connection. So he wrote that about last week's podcast where the musical group we were talking about was Living Color. I was highlighting a song that they covered from Talking Heads. Memories Can't Wait. Sure, Howie, if you want a connection between Living Color and David Bowie, I got you covered. Uh, Vernon Reid, who is the guitarist and sort of the founding member of Living Color, said in several interviews one of his guitar heroes was Robert Fripp, who you may know from King Crimson. We haven't done a King Crimson song. We need to put one of those on there. But Robert Fripp, in addition to being Vernon Reid's guitar hero, provided the iconic guitars for David Bowie's song Heroes. There's a great YouTube video about that. Tony Visconti, who is the producer for David Bowie's that album, talks about how they used the guitar licks and that he gave to create that song in Heroes. And Howie, I'm going to go even further because we talked about last week that the Living Color song was actually a Talking Head song, Memories Can't Wait, off of their album Fear of Music. And that album, in addition to being produced by Brian Eno, who we've talked about in previous episodes, was I think we talked about Roxy Music in episode 40 and Brian Eno separately in 117. Robert Fripp contributed some guitar to that album as well too. So plenty of Bowie references to deal out. This week we so the other comment correction criticisms I wanted to mention came from a listener, and he wrote, "Great to connect. I've been a fan of your work. Excuse me. Great to connect." This was from Eric Spirko. Great to connect. I've been a fan of your work on Sleep Unplugged podcast for a while, and I found it a breath of fresh air for a neurologist to do an entire episode on lucid dreaming. So he's talking about the episode we did quite a while back on lucid dreaming. And if you're a follower of the podcast, you know every year we do a listener lucid dreaming experiment where we all try to meet up in a lucid dream at a place in the world and communicate information to each other. So stay tuned for that next year. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of this practice and dreaming more generally in elite performers. I understand there's a great deal we still don't know from a scientific perspective, but I'd be curious to hear what you've seen on the ground with the clients you work with and their uh, how receptive they are to proactively engaging with dreams. Thank you very much, Eric, for listening to the podcast and taking the time to send a message. I talk about dreaming with virtually all my patients and clients just as a general conversation. Do you dream every night? Are your dreams relatively pleasant? Are they kind of strange? Are they disturbing and distressing? Are they distressing to the point where you don't want to go to sleep? We've talked about nightmare disorder on the podcast as well, too, not too long ago. So yes, this is something that we talk about a lot. And going further, using lucid dreaming and visualization techniques can be a fantastic way for individuals to unlock performance goals and things of that nature. I was just recording some information for the Los Angeles Dodgers and talk to their players about, hey, when you go to bed at night, what is your plan? What are you going to do when you get into bed? For some people, they get into bed, they go right to sleep. For others, it might be a challenge. So, using lucid dreaming, visualization, things of that nature prior to going to bed can be a great way to sort of develop a plan for issues related to insomnia and reduce that anxiety, but also improve performance. Visualizing yourself throwing a ball, hitting a pitch, taking the errors that you made in a game. Let's say, I don't know, you're a center fielder for the New York Yankees, and a routine fly ball is hit to center and you drop it. One of the greatest things to do rather than trying to forget about that, which I imagine you would want to do, especially if it cost your organization a World Series title, instead of forgetting about it, why don't you replay it over and over in your head? Here's the ball, it's off the bat, it's up in the air, you're running towards it, you reach out, and instead of dropping it, you actually watch the ball into the glove and make the catch. I think that visualizations like that can make us better at what we do without even practicing it. So thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate it. This week's musical lyric from the title Lay Your Weary Head to Rest is from the Kansas song Carry On Wayward Son. A lot of people call it Carry On My Wayward Son, which is in the lyric, but the actual title of the song is Carry On Wayward Son. It's an amazing song with beautiful harmonizations to start off with. It came off of their fourth album entitled Leftoverture, which was one of my favorite album titles ever, because there was a lot of leftovers from their previous three songs. In fact, the songwriting responsibilities for Kansas were really between the lead singer, Steve Walsh, who has an amazing note. And if you're familiar with this song, you know the note that he hits at the end of this song that goes on for like 40 seconds. But Steve Walsh and their keyboardist Carrie Livgren actually shared songwriting responsibilities when they got together to start the proceedings for recording what would be their fourth album, Leftoverture, which was released in '76. Steve Walsh came to the studio and said, Carrie, I got nothing. So Carrie wrote, I think, all the songs on the album, including Carry On Wayward Son. He's also responsible for Dust in the Wind. So if you've seen Old School with Will Ferrell, there is a amazing Dust in the Wind performance at a funeral, which always cracks me up. Anyway, just a quick note. I always thought, and I had this in my head, that Peter Lloyd, who was a kind of a graphic designer who did the album covers for, I think, a couple of Kansas's albums, and is responsible for that very stylized way Kansas would write their name on the album. I was always under the impression that Peter Lloyd designed the NFL logo. I don't know where that got in my head. So I was kind of researching this podcast. I looked that up, and while he did work for the NFL, who actually designed the early NFL logo that's kind of morphed into what it is today is largely a mystery. Nobody really knows who did it, which I think is really cool. So anyway, moving on. Oh, Kathleen's gonna be mad at us because we took way too long to get to the meat and potatoes of our topic. So napping, we talked about napping back in episode 17 of the podcast. Number one, that was a very long time ago. Number two, that episode really focused on should you nap or should you not nap in relationship to people who struggle to fall asleep at night. It takes them a while to fall asleep at night. They finally sleep, they get up, they feel tired, so they take a nap. That episode was really more about who should be napping and who shouldn't, some general, particulars about benefits and things like that. Uh, Number one, the sound quality of the episode's terrible because it was one of the first episodes we did. Number two, there's been a lot of research that's kind of looked at napping in that time. So I really wanted to kind of focus on, okay, you've decided you want to take a nap. Is it a good idea? And what's the best way to do it? And so, why do we nap? Why would it even be a consideration? Why is this something one might want to do? Well, relaxation, of course. For some people, it might improve cognition and performance and alertness. It might affect mood positively. If somebody is tired or sleepy, it might improve that as well too. And then reaction times and memory focus, all that good stuff. So there's lots of reasons why potentially taking a nap would be helpful. And just to refresh back from episode 17, I think napping is positive. I always think of sleep like a credit card. We talked about sleep debt and banking sleep on the podcast before. To me, it's really less about getting your 7, 8 hours a day and more about getting 49 to 56 hours per week. That's what we're looking for. So if something prevents me from getting sleep tonight, when I flew back from Knoxville, I had to catch a flight that left at 6 a.m. And not being that familiar with the Knoxville airport, which was pretty small, and I knew it would be pretty quick security line. I got there, pretty early. So getting up from my hotel is getting up, four something or whatever, which ended up being a little too early, but that's okay. I got a little work done. So that wasn't a great night of sleep because I was lecturing until a later period of time, had to get up early to catch a flight to get home. So in that situation, napping is a great way to make up for that sleep that I would have gotten on the plane or would have gotten on a typical night, but didn't because of that travel situation. And speaking about sleeping on a plane, oh, I slept like crazy on the plane. I had my sleep mask. I had my earplugs. I had my cushion. I even brought a little blanket. I had my deep sleepwear, sleep hoodie, which has got this great hood and a mask built. I mean, I had it all. So we were we were ready to sleep on the plane. So before we dive into what makes a great nap and how we can make it better, I want to look at some of these specific reasons why one might nap and evaluate it through the lens of some current research that's been done that I find to be interesting. The first is mood. I think we can say pretty definitively now, napping generally improves mood. I would say that you might even, if you want to be really particular, you could say napping doesn't typically worsen mood. But I think that we can say, looking at that, if from people who struggle with depression, anxiety, other kinds of mood disorders, napping is usually a positive. In fact, when I think about narcolepsy patients, talk to them, one of the things we often see when we start to improve their wakefulness, they become more awake on medications. They are no longer taking naps. Sometimes you do see a little bit of an uptick or a big uptick in their anxiety. And so I always say to them, look, Sleeping, napping is a wonderful treatment for anxiety. How anxious can you be when you're asleep on your couch? So, for a lot of individuals who struggle with hypersomnia, it's a shock to be that awake during the day, and that can lead itself to anxiety. So, napping can be a great way to sort of turn down the nervous system and help with that anxiety. I did want to highlight just specifically about mood and napping, a 2024 study from some researchers up at Mass General who wanted to look at the desire to nap and what that said about mood. And what they found was wanting to take a nap was absolutely related to individuals who struggled with depression and anxiety, but that actually taking naps did not add to that relationship. So it's really interesting as a clinician, and they said this in the article, when we're evaluating people, we might want to look at individuals who nap, who actually fall asleep during the day, as being a little bit of a different marker for people who talk a lot about, complain about, long for, oh, I just wish I could take a nap. I want to take a nap so badly that the wanting might be a more direct indicator of mood issues than the actual act of taking the nap. So performance is a big one. Again, I just recorded a video for one of the baseball teams I work for, and the entire reason I work for this team and all the teams I work for is this belief that, hey, we think if we can make our sleep better, we can make our performance better. So if sleep makes performance better, then napping should make performance better naturally, right? Maybe. So this was a study looking at the existing studies investigating the influence of napping on athletic performance. And so basically the standard thought is that, after a normal night of sleep, a midday nap might enhance or restore aspects of performance and make people, sleep or feel better. And a lot of studies have looked at, and in the study, it was a retrospective study on a lot of studies, it said most, but not all, suggest that compared to short-term naps, 20 to 30 minute, this is the nap we always recommend people do. In fact, when you look up, what's the best way to take a nap, it's generally telling you to take a 15 to 30, 15 to 20-minute nap, not long enough to get into that deep sleep. So basically this study said most, but not all findings suggest that compared to a short nap, long-term ones, greater than 35 minutes up to 90 minutes, appear to provide superior benefits to the athletes. And this is something that I have sort of anecdotally felt my entire career as a young sleep specialist right out of training, green as a, a spring grass field. I would tell athletes all the time, hey, the best way for you to nap is a short nap, 15 to 20 minutes. This allows you to kind of refresh yourself, but not move into deeper stages of sleep, which are more likely to cause you to have sleep inertia and feel drowsy later in the day. And I will admit there was often pushback. Well, I don't know, sleep doc, but I've been doing this ever since I played AAU ball, ever since I was little league. I've always taken, a 1 hour nap or an hour and a half long nap. And so early in my career, I would kind of encourage the people to at least, hey, why don't you try shorter naps at a more consistent time and make sure you get light when you wake up, et cetera, and see how you feel. The older I get, the more I think the athletes were right all along, that maybe the longer nap for some might be better. Now, there's some caveats. You want to make sure that there's plenty of time between the termination of that longer nap and when you've actually got to perform. There was actually a 2021 study that kind of went further. This study looked at 37 studies and basically said that athletes may consider napping between 20 to 90 minutes, that being the recommended duration, which is to me a hedge your bet, right? It's got the short and the long in there. And that the ideal time for this napping would be somewhere between 1 to 4 p.m. And that and this is what I think is most important, athletes should allow 30 minutes to reduce sleep inertia prior to training or competition. Um, and future studies might be able to kind of look at this and feel better about it. So I think that maybe we're starting to see that dogma of the 15 to 20-minute nap that everybody preaches, which is built on not the greatest of evidence, at least in a high performing population, like an athletic performing population, that those individuals might seem to do better with longer time periods. Now, there's a lot of confounding there. I think you could say, well, look, yeah, you're talking about a Major League Baseball player that is experiencing what you experienced when you went to Knoxville every 3 to 4 days. They're traveling, 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 always having things that are interfering with their ability to get the right amount of sleep. So, can we truly say this about the athletic population and relate it to the average person who might be getting a more consistent sleep, both in terms of timing and quantity? The answer is I don't know. Are we using the longer nap in the athlete to make up for the inevitable sleep loss they have during the season? Again, don't know the answer to that. The last thing I wanted to touch on was cognition and memory. Does napping truly improve that? I think this kind of relates to me like the mood. I think we're at a place now where we can definitely say that napping does seem to improve memory. This was, a lot of Matt Walker's early experiments of I'm going to teach you a certain keystroke sequence. I want you to do it and not make any mistakes. And then I want you to rest for a period of time. And then we'll test you on that again versus the same, thing that other people are learning. We're going to test you at the same time duration, but there will be no sleep in between. This is the whole reason why, most people feel like it's a mistake to pull an all-nighter before a test where you've got to memorize a lot of things. The sleeping is part of the memorization process. So this was a 2022 study entitled Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis of the Effects of Afternoon Napping on Cognition, 60 samples from 54 studies, looking at things like memory, vigilance, speed of processing, executive function. I'll read from the study. Nap showed significant benefits for the total aggregate of cognitive tests. Significant domain specific effects were present for declarative memory and procedural memory, vigilance, being able to stay awake and be responsive, and speed of processing. Afternoon naps have a small to medium benefit over multiple cognitive tests. These effects transcend age, nap duration, and habitual prior nocturnal sleep, which is why whenever I refer a patient for neuropsychological testing, I always tell them, hey, get a lot of sleep the night before and consider a little nap, prior to taking your test. That resting, that napping is going to make you perform your best on that neuropsychological test. So I think that all of this is fantastic. So what do we do to create the best nap opportunities and situations for ourselves? I think the first thing we need to talk about, which we already have, is nap length. Ideally, I still think that we tell people, ideally a 20 to 30-minute nap seems to be best for individuals who are getting a consistent amount of sleep at night, the right duration and quantity of sleep at night, but still want a little touch up the next day. I think if you are somebody who has a job or a lifestyle where your sleep scheduling is much less predictable and you are losing sleep because of you're on call, your hours are long, you're working two jobs, I think that we can take that 20 to 30-minute nap duration and we can extend it for sure. The timing of naps, I think, again, like that study said, 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon is probably perfect. Most studies have indicated that napping early in the afternoon, when your energy is naturally dipping, seem to be best. I think about Roger Eckert's book, At Day's Close, where he kind of makes an argument for first sleep, a wakefulness period, and second sleep. I think that you could make a similar argument for first wake when you wake up, leading up to midday, take a nap, and then you have second wake. I think napping is a great way to split the day. Earlier in the day is better because it's less likely to create the problem of subtracting from your sleep the upcoming night. the nap environment. Cool, dark, quiet, everything we've talked about. One of the episodes for a podcast I want to do, and it was really apparent when I was doing the holiday gift guide a couple episodes back, is designing. If somebody said, here, this is my bedroom, Chris, I'm going to give you $500,000. I want you to design the perfect bedroom with whatever technology, whatever products you want, specific to me. I want the perfect bedroom. Sometimes you get a glimpse of this, like when you're watching some sort of sci-fi show and they go into their bedroom, like it's got some cool, pod over their bed, or, the lighting is really cool. I always loved one of my favorite movies. He's kind of a weirdo, but Tom Cruise, I mean, he's an amazing actor. I love Vanilla Sky. What a uh, great movie, and a lot of cool music references, and that Radiohead song at the end of the just tears me up every time. But I remember his bedroom. Do you remember that from the beginning of the movie? How awesome it was. He had an awesome, awesome bedroom, and that was a long time ago. That Cameron Crowe movie came out quite a bit ago. Um, but yeah, love that movie. So I think thinking about your bedroom environment or your napping environment is really important, and establishing it as the place where you go to nap can be really helpful. So if you've got the ability, you work at home and you've got the ability to nap in your bedroom, outstanding. You can leave your desk in your office or your kitchen or your living space wherever you work. I think ideally you're not working in your bedroom. And when it's time to take the nap, you go into the space where all the cues exist for you to start to sleep. So I want, when you're sitting at your desk, that's the cue to be awake and vigilant and concentrating. When you're in your bedroom, that's the place to be quiet and reflective and peaceful and rest, and maybe even fall asleep. So the room should be cool. It should be dark. I mean, it should be really dark. Novel smells, lavender can be great. We talked about certain, flavored toothpaste the last time, the Naco, I think Naco toothpaste we were talking about during the sleep gift guide. And I'm somebody who, looking that up real quick. Oh, Boca, sorry. I knew it was for like Boca, Boka, the Boca toothpaste. I like that idea of you're working along and okay, it's time to take the nap. So you brush your teeth with the ginger toothpaste or the lavender toothpaste. So, it's kind of a nice thing to brush your teeth after after you take a nap or after you wake up, but maybe even before. So, kind of brush your teeth off after you have lunch. So maybe your napping rituals. I work and then I have my lunch and then I brush my teeth with the lavender Boca toothpaste and then I take my nap. And so that toothpaste in that dark room and the lavender smell on your pillow and the sleeping mask that you've got from Dore and Rose, the mulberry silk sleep mask, all of these things kind of help you to kind of create those triggers for a great nap because your body might not be expecting sleep midway through the day. If you don't have access to a bedroom, this is the place where the Z-Den can be great, the little portable tent. So you could sneak off to a little place, pop that little tent, and at least have the upper part of your body in a dark environment. So I kind of like that, like, pulling that out or your sleep mask when you're getting ready to sleep to kind of create that great environment. Phones get turned off, computers turned off, no screens. I think you could have a little sound machine if you wanted to. So I kind of like the idea of, going into the little back room where you work and popping open your little Z-Den and you take your little yoga sleep portable sound machine and maybe you even have a sleep mask, even though you've got the den and a little bed gear pillow and all the things we talked about last week. And you're just in there, and you've got this great little environment and you spray a little lavender spray around. It smells like lavender and it sounds like the ocean in your quiet little dark place. And you've just brushed your teeth so you feel nice and clean. And that taste is reminding you it's time to. So creating that ritual, I think really, really makes a great difference. And again, just leave your phone at your desk, for those 15, 20, 30 minutes that you're going to take a nap. I think winding down before you nap can be very helpful. It's not always easy to do that. I think pairing your nap right after something really stressful is probably not the right thing to do. Set an alarm. Again, the goal of your nap is not sleep, it's resting. I'm going to go pop my tent, get my pillow, turn on my noise machine, spray my spray, put my sleep mask on, put my little sleep hoodie on, and I'm going to put my head down that pillow and just close my eyes and check out for a little bit. I might meditate, I might recite a prayer. I might think about all the things I want to give my friends and family for Christmas this year, but I'm just going to go in there and that's my goal. It's not to fall asleep. I'm going to set this little alarm on my watch so that if 15 minutes pass or 30 minutes pass and I do fall asleep, it will wake me up to go back to work. I also think it's a good idea to tell people, hey, I'm going to go back and take my nap. If I'm not back here in 20 minutes or so, can you come just knock on the door and come get me? Or call me or whatever. If you don't have your phone, that can be difficult. But again, I like setting those backups. What I don't want the nap to entail is, oh, what if I fell asleep and I slept through my alarm and I missed out on that client call at 1 p.m. Like, I want you to have so many fail safes that there's no worry whatsoever that you're going to oversleep and people are going to miss you. So set that up to make sure that that's the case. Coffee, we've talked about coffee in episodes before. Some people really like the coffee nap or the caffeine nap where you have your sip of coffee, and I just took mine, and you drink the coffee right before the nap. So you're sort of drinking the coffee before the coffee can really kick in. You're getting that 15 to 20-minute nap in so that when the nap is over, the caffeine kicks in. So you're getting both the benefit of your nap and the benefit of your caffeine, all fueling you powerfully through the second part of your day. Consistency is king. This should be an appointment. You take your nap every day from 12:30 to 1 or from 1 to 1:25, whatever your time is, trying to make that consistent will make the effect of your nap better and will absolutely minimize the problems of sleep inertia. So, what are the problems of taking a nap? I think the first one is sleep inertia. It's probably the number one thing that people tell, maybe number two, but one or two. Number two, you'll know as well. But that people are saying, look, I'd like to take a nap, but I always feel worse after the nap. So how do we deal with sleep inertia? It's consistency of the nap and what are you doing after the nap? I would say when your nap is over, come out of your sleep pod, put your mask away, turn off your noise machine, pack it all up, then go outside, take a lap or two around the building. Walk out to maybe your ritual is, hey, take all these things that I nap with, I pack them up in my little bag, I walk out to my car, put them in my car, and walk back into the office. So getting outside, moving your body, having some light, eating some food, you've already drank your caffeine, trying to create that kind of ritual can really make the nap even more effective. Um, Probably number two in terms of why people don't nap, it could be number one. Again, it's close, is I'm worried that the napping is going to affect my ability to sleep at night. So, if you find that napping is affecting your ability to sleep at night, you should either reduce the time that you are napping or essentially maybe move away from napping altogether. Now, if you're saying, look, it always takes me 2 hours to fall asleep, whether I nap or not, that has a lot more to do, I think, with your selection of going to bed at night and maybe your feelings and emotions as you lead up to going to sleep. But I do think that that's worth, investigating. The final thing I want to mention is health risk. Is there a health related benefit to sleep? We've talked about some performance and cognition and mood. Are there risks? And this was from a 2022 study from Sleep Medicine Reviews that looked at a total of 11 articles um, uh, for umbrella relationships between napping and diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and an additional 97 other studies that were looking at more systemic risk for cardiovascular disease and cardiovascular disease risk factors. So this review of a lot of studies basically showed that there were associations between daytime napping, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and mortality in most of these studies. And it was sort of supported by relatively weak or suggestive evidence or relationships, meaning we see a weak relationship between napping and diabetes, or napping and cardiovascular disease, or death outcomes from heart disease. So when they actually did the study, they did something different, which was they separated out the long daytime napping with the short daytime napping. Long daytime napping in this was anything that was an hour or greater, and then short was below that. And what they found was that there was no significant association between short daytime napping and most of the things that I just mentioned. That really started to seem to kind of kick in when the nap became greater than 30 minutes, definitely greater than an hour. Now, the only exception to that was when you started looking at adults over the age of 60, those relationships between napping and adverse health outcomes started with naps that were very small. So, what does this mean? What it means is, in general, we're probably doing ourselves benefit from the short nap, the nap that we have always recommended to the average person. Hey, you want to take a nap, keep it short, 15 to 20 minutes, refresh yourself, improve your mood and your performance and your cognition for the second half of the day, and maybe over a long period of time will improve your health, or at least not diminish it. So I think what we have to be very careful of here is with older adults, when individuals 60 and older are describing napping, describing excessive sleepiness, is the napping what's causing the dementia, the problem, or more likely, is there something wrong with the nocturnal sleep that is leading that individual to feel sleepy during the day and feel like they need the nap? I think there's a big differentiator there. One last thing before we end this podcast, looking at a 2023 study of dementia and cognition. Older adults tended to nap longer and more frequently with aging, while the progression of Alzheimer's dementia accelerates this change by more than doubling the annual increases in nap duration and frequency. So, once again, when you're looking at an older adult who's having a rapidly increasing drive to nap during the day, that might be something that's related to cognitive decline and the diagnosis of dementia. So, in general, make your environment great, be consistent, keep your nap short, unless you're one of the athletes who works for the teams that I work for, in which case, as long as you're young and you're performing hard out in the field or on the court, you can make that nap a little bit longer. Do what's best for you. Thank you very much for listening. Again, this is Chris Winter. You can find me at Dr. Chris Winter Twitter, Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Bluesky. Find our YouTube page for the Sleep Unplugged podcast. We will add Kansas and Carry On Wayward Son to the Spotify playlist for the Sleep Unplugged podcast. And until next week, sleep well.